Play ball.
How you doing, baseball fans, and welcome to another edition of the Brushback with JP Ricciardi. I'm John Arezzi. We're back for another week with another great guest. So let's go right to JP up in that beautiful state of Massachusetts. JP, how you doing?
I'm good, John. How you doing?
I am in New York right now,
I
my
know
friend.
you are. I know you are. You're in God's country for you.
Well, yeah, I wouldn't say that. Nashville is more God's country than New York is to me. But it's been a great few days here, working some stuff with Tunnel to Towers with Joe Torre on Monday, Mike Piazzi yesterday. Got to see the Subway Series game last night, and that was a real good one. And it was exciting being here, but it's always exciting being with you as well, my friend.
Well, I appreciate that, John. As long as I haven't turned into second fiddle behind those guys.
No, never. And hey, we go back 43 years, my friend.
Well, just
So
giving
this
you a
is
hard
always
time.
fun for me. Always fun each and every week. And I do have to say, I've been seeing some social media clips with you with the Woo Sox. I mean, you were talking to one of their field reporters about the turf and the mascot dog up there that rolls out that turf, and you were like saying you've done it in your life too. You've rolled
Yeah,
out that
I was
tarp.
telling her, you really want to be in baseball. You don't really know what it's like till you rolled out the tarp one day. But more
Yeah.
importantly, don't get stuck under the tarp. That's a bad thing if that ever happens.
I mean, that mascot dog was really
Yeah,
cool because he's
yeah,
actually with the ground crew rolling
yeah.
that
It's pretty
tarp
cool.
out.
Yeah,
That
yeah,
was
it's
a
pretty
great
cool.
video. Are you enjoying that, being
Yeah,
in the
it's a lot
booth
of
there? You
fun.
having fun?
Yeah, the way I describe it, it's actually like scouting the game, but talking about what you're seeing as it plays out in front of you. So it's been a lot of fun, and I got a few more. I got a lot more dates coming up, so I'm excited about that.
Very, very cool. I'm glad you're enjoying that. But we have a good week. Another one this week, JP. We have another special guest, as you do each and every week. You bring on some great names in the game of baseball. And this week, you're going to bring on later on the segment a man who's worn many hats in the game of baseball, most notably the first general manager of the Arizona Diamondbacks and a former senior VP of Major League Baseball, still involved with the D-backs, and a son of another baseball legend. So tell us who you got coming up.
Yeah, we have Joe Garagiola Jr., who's had a long storied career in baseball. Obviously, he was born into a baseball family. His dad was Joe Garagiola, and a longtime major league player, but probably best remembered for NBC Game of the Week, doing it with Tony Kubek, and I think he was on What's My Line, and he was on the Today Show. But Joe is he's first of all, he's a great guy. You're going to love some of the things he's got to talk about, but being a part of an organization from its inception to becoming the first general manager, to taking them to the playoffs, to taking them to their first world championship, and then taking off his career into Major League Baseball. So a very, very interesting background and a different perspective on baseball, which we're trying to do here every week, is expose people to different people that do different things and have done different things in the game.
Well, you're certainly doing that, and we can't wait for that segment to be coming up shortly. But let's get into this week's hot takes. It's brought to you by Percy's Appliance Outlet, featuring brand name appliances at up to 80% off regular retail prices. They're Worcester's largest dealer of home appliances and electronics, serving Worcester for over 80 years. Check out all of this week's specials by going to Percy's.com or give them a call. 508 is the area code. 438-6800 is the number. JP, hot take. The Boston Red Sox. They've made a nice turnaround as we head into the second half of the season, winning 8 of their last 10 games. They're now positioned in that third wild card spot in the American League. JP, give us your take on the hot Bo Sox.
Well, I think Cora's done an amazing job. I think what he's doing right now is anti-baseball. We've created this game where nobody steals bases, where nobody hit and runs, where nobody bunts. It's been looked upon as it's terrible. There's been so much said about it, so much written about it, especially from the analytics community. But what Cora's done is taken advantage of all those things that no one can defend. We don't defend the bunts well in the big leagues. We don't defend hit runs well. We certainly cannot hold runners on base, and catchers cannot throw anybody out. We live in a game of baseball right now, John, where you can have runners on first and third, and the runner at first can walk into second base. We're not even making throws down to second base anymore. It's becoming like Little League. We're just giving the guy second base. So what Cora has done is he's really taken the athleticism that the Red Sox have with Duran and Sedena and so many of the other guys, and he's stealing bases. They stole 9 bases against the Yankees a couple of Sundays ago. 9 bases in a Major League Baseball game, John. You would think if I told you a Little League game, you'd say, wow, but 9 in a Major League game. And they continue to do that. I think they've had the most stolen bases in Red Sox history up to this point. I see them play a lot because obviously I'm around here, but they are taking advantage of what people cannot do, and they do not defend. The catchers are on one knee; they can't hold runners on, and it's just an epidemic in baseball. But like people bought into on base percentage and all the things that Moneyball was a part of, which I think is great. Cora is now taking the things that used to be a part of the Phillies and the Reds and the teams who played on those turf, and he's putting it on their major league team, and they're creating runs. And I think they're onto something.
Yeah, and it's always good to see the Sox come back and be competitive. What a storied franchise. I lived in Boston for 5 years. I used to go to Fenway all the time. I love the Sox, love the Red Sox. Great to see them back in the hunt and now inching closer and getting into that third wild card spot right now. So we are at the halfway point now on the schedule, JP. Teams like the
Crazy.
Dodgers and the Phillies performing as they were expected to. But there are some surprises in the American League. The Guardians have the best record in baseball. The Mets have the best record in baseball in the month of June. They're arguably the hottest team in the National League right now. And when we take a look at the amount of teams in both leagues, still right there in that third wild card spot, it's insane. 9 teams in the National League, 7 teams in the American League, all battling for that third spot. Give us your take on where we are right now at the midpoint of the season.
Well, I can't believe we're at the midpoint already. It's unbelievable how fast it's come. But obviously, this is like the line of demarcation. Do we buy? Do we sell? I think the great thing is the wild card has kept everybody in the race outside of the White Sox and the Marlins and the Angels and the A's. But everybody else in baseball has a chance to be a playoff team. Now it's going to come down to which organization decides that they're going to be a playoff team and what front offices are going to make trades. Do the Mets buy into how hot they've played and the way this, they got off to a bad start, but now they're playing better. They play a weaker schedule in the second half. Do they buy into that? Do they become sellers or buyers? Do the Red Sox, who are on fire that we talked about earlier, who have a plethora of young talent, do they dip into that young talent? Now, they're probably not going to touch their high guys, but they have enough guys below that they can still, get a guy here or there. So that's going to be interesting to see which teams step up. I think the teams that will definitely make a move will be the Yankees. They're in it. They got a great team. They're playing well. They just got Garrett Cole back. They know their weaknesses. They've always stepped up at the trading deadline. I see them definitely making a move. I think Dombrowski in Philadelphia will make a move because he realizes that they're that close. I could see the Braves making a move because Alex Anthopoulos is very aggressive. I think the Dodgers will address anything that they need to address. I think the teams that I don't see them jumping in. I think the Guardians will be very hesitant of what they do, and they're having a great year, so maybe they don't think they need a lot because their bullpen is so good. So I could see them being a little hesitant. And then, I'm going to tell you one team to watch out for because they're really playing well. It's going to be the Astros. The Astros are starting to play better, and it's almost like that first half they can wipe the slate clean. They've gotten basically back to 500. Now they're starting to play their best baseball, and I think it's in a division that they can win. So I think the challenge in that division is going to be, does Seattle step up and make a move to separate themselves from the oncoming Astros? So I'm really curious to see from a front office perspective what front office steps up and makes a move, and what front office just kind of sits still.
Yeah, as we head into the heat of the summer and get closer to the trade deadline, baseball is heating up. And JP, once again, thanks for the hot takes as always. And speaking about things heating up, why don't we go to this spot right now from our sponsor, Percy's Appliance Outlet and see all of their hot deals.
Percy's Mattress Gallery, featuring the finest names in quality mattresses from Serta, Simmons, Beautyrest Black, and more, all at the guaranteed lowest prices with Percy's Price Match Guarantee. Percy's offers fast, expert, and professional delivery, installation, and removal. Shop in store or look for the green in-stock buttons online at Percy's.com, where long-term interest-free financing is available with the click of a button. The Mattress Gallery at Percy's, first on Gold Star Boulevard in Worcester.
All right, JP, before we get to Batter Up, we'd like to welcome a new sponsor of this segment, the Worcester Bravehearts. Tell us about the Bravehearts, JP.
The Bravehearts are a summer baseball team based here in Worcester, Massachusetts. They play in the Futures League. It's a league that's produced a lot of big leaguers. A lot of good players have come through it that played different colleges throughout the country. The Bravehearts have recently been purchased by the Vaccaro family, and they are a big baseball family here in central Massachusetts. They have been involved with the Shrewsbury American Legion Post for years, and they've gone to several World Series. They've been very, very successful. Frank Vaccaro has been the patriarch behind the Vaccaro family. He has a great love for baseball, and he turned it in this year by purchasing the Worcester Bravehearts. It's a family-run organization. His son Matt is a big part of it. They have Dave Peterson, who is the general manager, has been there a long time. Fan-friendly, great family atmosphere, very affordable. Fireworks on Friday night, good baseball to watch. It's a great night out for families, and they've been very, very successful here in central Massachusetts. And I think the Vaccaro family is going to take the torch and just pass it on and keep having a lot of success. So we're very, very lucky to have them. We're grateful to them. And we want to see nothing but the best for the Bravehearts.
Yeah, they certainly are exciting, and we'll be talking more about them each and every week here. But I believe, JP, also there's one of the guys that went through the team is Ben Rice, who's now playing on the New York Yankees.
Yeah, Ben Rice just got called up. He actually played with my two boys played for the Bravehearts. My oldest son, Dante, played there 3 years, and my youngest son, Mariano, played there 3 years, and Mariano and Ben Rice played a couple of years together. So several players have been drafted out of the league. Several players have gotten to the big leagues. So it's a great league, and Worcester is the jewel of the league. They play in a great facility, and I know the Vaccaro family has done everything first class. They're going to continue to do first class, and they have really taken the baton from the Creedon family, who were the previous owners, and they're going to run with it and continue to make Worcester the best place in the summer for college players to play.
Well, we certainly welcome them to the Batter Up segment and their involvement with the show. And the Batter Up with JP is being brought to you by the Worcester Bravehearts. If you're looking for affordable family fun, you've come to the right place. Check out the four-time Futures Collegiate Baseball League champion Bravehearts by going to WorcesterBraveheartsStore.com to get your tickets to an upcoming Bravehearts game today. And now it's time for Batter Up with JP. Our special guest on this week's Brushback has had a great career in the game. He was instrumental as part of a team that helped bring Major League Baseball to Arizona, where he served as the first general manager of the Diamondbacks and held that role for 8 consecutive seasons, which included 5 straight winning campaigns, including a world championship in 2001. From 2005 to 2011, he was a senior vice president of baseball operations for the MLB. He continues today as the senior director of special projects for the Diamondbacks. He's also the son of one of the legendary personalities of baseball, Joe Garagiola. Let's welcome to the Brushback, Joe Garagiola Jr. Joe, welcome to the Brushback.
Great to be here. Great to talk with my good longtime friend JP. He's the best.
The feeling's mutual, and I was telling my wife last night. I was so excited to talk to you today, but you don't even realize, like, your dad, when I was growing up, he was like one of my uncles. He was like listening. My father came from a family of 10. My mother came from a
Yeah.
family of 10. And all my uncles were like your father. They were quick witted. They were funny. And it was just so refreshing. And of course, my father, the fact that your dad was Italian, he walked on water. So I know we'll get into your dad later on because I know there's so much, but what a great career you're still having. I'll paraphrase that, but I got so many questions I wanted to jump into you here, Joe. Uh, the first one I wanted to run by you is how did the whole thought about bringing a team to Arizona? Because you were at the grassroots. Where did it come from?
Wow, JP, that's a great question. I guess I moved out here in 1982, hard to believe, from New York. Um, and I knew because I had grown up in St. Louis and then moved to New York, I really understood, or I felt, I guess, in my heart, what a baseball team could mean to a community. And so a time came where it seemed like Phoenix was a big enough city, community, to support it. And so in the early 90s, there was an effort to get on the expansion committee's list. That was the expansion that ultimately produced the Rockies and the Marlins. And that really didn't go anywhere. And it was probably a good thing because the building that would have been built would have been, as it turns out, horrendous. It would have been essentially the Kingdome, one of these multi-purpose, built for football and baseball, fixed roof, artificial, everything that people don't like anymore. That's what we would have built. So it was a real blessing in disguise. And then a few years later, a friend of mine who was on the county board of supervisors and I had been talking about this. And we said, you know what? This could really happen, but we need the right guy to be in front of it. Otherwise, it can't work. And we said, there's only one guy in town to do this, and that's Jerry Colangelo, who was the owner of the Phoenix Suns. So we went to see him. And this is 1993. And Jerry listens to us very politely and says, well, this is flattering. And, I like baseball. I love baseball, as a matter of fact. But, we just opened a new arena here and with Suns in the finals. And I got a lot of stuff going on. But I tell you what, why don't you guys come back and talk to me in the fall? This was in the summer. And I'll see what I think then. He said, okay. So what we didn't know, what Jerry told me later on, was he was kind of sandbagging us because he's in this way. The finals, the NBA finals that year, of course, were the Chicago Bulls. They were the other finalists. It was a great series. And Jerry said there was one night they were back in Chicago. They had an off day, and the Cubs were playing a night game. And Jerry said, we went out to the game. We're sitting there, beautiful night, Wrigley Field, all that. And he says, I thought to myself, boy, we need this in Phoenix.
Wow.
So we come back in the fall, and he says, okay, we're going to go for it. Now, mind you, baseball had given no indication it was going to expand at that point. In fact, they were about to head into the throes. You'll remember this, 94, the strike killed the World Series, the lockout, replacement play, all of that horrible stuff. So in some respects, you couldn't have picked a worse time.
Right.
But Jerry said, no, you got this backwards. This is the best time to get in. It can only go up from here. Okay. So first we had to convince baseball to even think about expansion, which they did. They created this expansion committee. Then we had to go through the process of, literally there was an application you had to fill out and then make a presentation and did all those things. And so March of 95, we're all down in Palm Beach at the Breakers, and they have their big meeting. And at that point, I was partner in a law firm out here, mostly still, I had, as you know, for a long time been an agent.
Right.
But as I got deeper and deeper into this pursuit of the franchise, our firm was handling all the legal work, so I had kind of divested myself of all of my ballplayer clients. So as we're sitting outside the room waiting for them to come out, it's like watching for the white smoke, for the So somebody says to me, "Well, how do you feel?" I said, "Well, so when the doors open, I'll either be part of a new Major League Baseball team or I will be a lawyer with no practice because I have gotten rid of all of my clients. So I'm actually pretty nervous." But it all worked out.
Who was your competition for other franchises at the time?
Well, of course, obviously Tampa Bay, which got the other franchise. Buffalo had been in there for a while. Gosh, I want to say, I think maybe Nashville,
Yeah.
maybe North Carolina. It's been a while, but
Yeah.
there were a few. There were a few, but I think the geography of it, among many things, made sense to the expansion committee. Put one in the East, one in the West, one in the National League, one in the American League.
So this is intriguing to me because I've never been a part of a ground level franchise. So you get the franchise. What's the next step?
Well, it immediately was on two tracks. Track one was get the stadium built because we did not have a stadium.
Right.
And part of the deal was we had to have a mechanism in place to build a stadium, which we got through a vote of the Maricopa County Board of Supervisors. So we knew we could build the stadium. We had a funding mechanism. It turned out to be, believe it or not, a tax that actually went away. I mean, when has that ever happened, right? In the history of tax, when has a tax ever gone away? This is the one. It is literally the one. There was a cap, and the deal was when that amount of money was raised, the tax would go away. And of course, everybody said, "Oh, sure, show me a politician that's ever gotten rid of a tax." Well, we hit the number, and it was a sales tax, and it went away.
Oh, that's pretty good.
So we had that all going, and then of course the other track was you had to start to build your organization because we knew the franchise was awarded in '95. So the timetable was March of '95. The first big thing would be that we would be in the draft, the amateur draft of '96, and then the expansion draft would occur in the fall of '97, and then we'd start playing in '98. So the first thing was to hire some amateur scouts to get ready for the amateur draft of '96, and then while you're doing that, you're building up your professional scouts to be really out there in '97 scouting the guys that we were going to take in the expansion draft.
Yeah, I remember talking to, obviously we had Buck on the show and we talked a lot about what you're talking about now, but so you get the team, you got to plan for the amateur draft, but when do you get named general? At what point do you say, "Hey, I want to be the general manager," or "I'd like to be the general"? How does that come into fruition?
That's a funny story, I guess. Now it's a funny story. So, as I said, I had been a partner, was a partner in a big firm, which, if time permits, and I don't know, does time permit me to tell you another story?
Yep, that's why we got you here.
This is I like my dad. I got a lot of stories. This is one of my all-time favorite stories. The firm I was with, Gallagher and Kennedy, and the Gallagher of Gallagher and Kennedy, Mike Gallagher, passed away a few years ago. He was a professional baseball player. He pitched at ASU, got drafted, played in the Oakland organization, was a teammate of Reggie's, then scouted for the Mets, and then was offered a position as a scouting supervisor, but decided to go to law school. And then ultimately he and his friend Mike Kennedy start this firm, which is now this big firm in Phoenix. Anyway, so now we have baseball. So Gallagher and Kennedy and I are talking, and we all agree we got to get this business. If we're not the law firm that represents Colangelo in this thing, we're all going to have to move or leave town or something because it would just kill us. All right. So we got the big pitch meeting. So we go over there, Gallagher and Kennedy and I, and we're sitting in Jerry's office, and we start, and it's going great, and we're really feeling it. And about 20 minutes in, Jerry says, Mike, he says, stop. He says, you had me at hello. He says, who else am I going to hire, right? But you guys. Well, I mean, now we're like, okay. So Kennedy and I look at each other, and we figure, all right, now the next move is get out of here before we screw this up somehow. We say the wrong thing, right? So we're packing up our papers. We're like, all of a sudden, Gallagher says, wait a minute, Jerry, wait a minute. There's one more thing we got to get straight here, and this is a deal breaker for us.
Oh, boy.
Well, yeah, and Kennedy and I look at each other like, where's he going with this? And we're like, so we're sitting there saying, what is this going to be? Now, mind you, this is 1993, 94, right? I swear this is true. Gallagher says, Jerry, when this team, and of course this team doesn't exist, right? It didn't even exist on paper yet, right? When this team wins the World Series, the three of us, we all get rings. Jerry says, sure, Mike. Okay, fine. Great. Now, the best part. Now flash forward to 2001. Gallagher had seats right behind home plate, right actually in front of my parents. Game 7 ends. The Yankees haven't even run off the field yet. And I look down to wave at my parents. Gallagher looks up at me, and he goes, and he got his ring. So, but anyway. Yeah. I'm sorry. I love telling that story. But to your question, so here I am. I'm going along, and I say one day to Rich Dozier, who had been the chief operating officer of the Suns, and who Jerry had said was going to be the president of the Diamondbacks. I said, Jerry's never really said anything to me about what happens after we get the franchise, if I'm going to be a part of this or what. And Rich says, I don't know. Just go talk to him. I was okay. So I go over there, and I'm kind of circling around this question. And he says, well, I've been thinking about this. And he says, initially, I thought that would be a good spot for you would be kind of the job you had with the Yankees. The Yankees, when you were the Yankees lawyer, I thought that'd be good. You'd be the general counsel for the team. Okay. He says, but the more I think about that, I don't think that's a very good idea. And I'm like, oh, okay. Sounded okay to me, He says, nah. He says, not that you're not a good lawyer, because you are a good lawyer, but you really strike me as more of a baseball guy. So my thought is that Rich will be the president of the team, and you'll be the general manager. How's that strike you? I said, well, I like that idea even better.
Keep talking.
That's a good idea. So that was it.
That's crazy. That's awesome.
Yeah, I know.
I've never met Colangelo. I talked to him once on the phone, but he seems like a great guy.
He is a tremendous guy. There were a lot of great things about working for Jerry, working with Jerry. I guess three that stand out. Number one, he is just a quality human being. Just is, right? Moral, honest, all that stuff. And the second thing is, he had been a general manager. He was the general manager of the Suns,
right,
before he put together a group that bought the team. So he had a very good working understanding of the job. So, he understood things work out, things don't work out, players get hurt, everything that, our jobs entail.
Right.
And so there was none of this sort of second guessing of, why did this happen? Well, it happened. I don't know what happened. It just happened, which, JP, you've lived it. You're trying to explain it, but you can't really explain it.
What a breath
Well,
breath of fresh air that is.
he had lived it. I mean, he had
Right.
literally lived it. He had been through everything you go through in one of these jobs, and that was just enormously helpful. Plus, as it turned out, he's one of the great closers. I
Yeah.
mean, this guy could close deals. I mean, Randy Johnson, Randy worked him because at the time, all the talk was Randy was going to go to the Angels. He was going to go back to Seattle. Jerry said, he's coming here, and I'm not going to take no for an answer. And how'd that work out?
Yeah, I mean everything that guy's touched, it's turned to gold, but he works, you could tell. I mean, Team USA basketball,
I was
the
going to say, yeah, USA Basketball, which was in a pretty bad spot, and this was very much a part of, and still is a part of the Diamondbacks. When you go back to when he was asked to take over USA Basketball, he said, "Look, we're only going to have players that want to be here.
right.
This sort of star system and everything, it's not working. It's not working. So we are going to be a team." Well, it was the same thing with the Diamondbacks. I remember it caused we got a lot of eye rolls and all of that in the very beginning when we said, "Look," and this was right from Jerry. The notion that you either have good players or good people, and these are somehow mutually exclusive topics, is nonsense.
Right.
We are going to first and foremost put a good product out there. It's going to be competitive because we want to win. That was the other thing. I mean, Jerry's whole background. He was a baseball player, basketball player in college. I mean, he's intensely competitive. Okay, so, but at the same time, these players are going to be players that the fans are going to want to root for. They're going to like, and that's going to be our team. That is going to be our team. You saw it. I mean, look at the guys
you actually jumped ahead of me. I had some questions on that, but I mean, so talk to the people about the challenge. You literally built an organization. Not many people. When I was in Toronto, I got to talk to some of the old timers, and they were telling me how they had to go, same thing as you, get the expansion team, what they went through, and they were telling me stories about that and building a team from the ground up. I didn't experience it. I heard the stories, but you actually experienced it. So talk to the people who are listening about what your challenges were, why you chose some of the guys you chose, and like you said, you guys came out of the box hot. You wanted to win. So explain about the early part of the Diamondbacks.
Well, what's sort of interesting about the early days, so we have the expansion draft, which actually went extremely well. In fact, some of the players, Brian Anderson, Damian Miller, were on the World Series team.
Yeah.
So our guys did a tremendous job of identifying and picking players, and then we made, like, the night of the draft, the Marlins were in another one of their periodic fire sales, so we were able to get Devon White, who turned out to be a tremendous center fielder. Played in Toronto for a while. But our plan was to build a farm system and be successful through player development, which is really, as you know, that's the only way you can be long-term successful. You have to be developing your own players. Okay. Well, our first year, two things happened. One, a lot of people came out to the ballpark. Two, we were not very successful. We were an expansion team, but we were 65 and 97. Okay. So then in year two, all of a sudden, people weren't coming out to the ballpark anymore, which was interesting because we had sort of viewed as our template, our older brother, whatever, the Rockies. And the Rockies, to this day, God bless those fans in Denver.
It's unbelievable. They turn out.
It is unbelievable. I mean, they love watching baseball. Of course, in the summer, what's not to love about Coors Field? It's one of my favorite ballparks. It's so pretty there. But year in, year out, good teams, not good teams, terrible teams. My gosh, those fans show up. Well, Phoenix has always been a little different. Phoenix, and like I say, I've been out here and watched it for 40 years. it's a little more, I don't know, nuanced might be the word, attitude, which is
Yeah.
when you put a good product out there, we'll come out and we'll support it. But if you don't, we won't. I mean,
Oh,
the Suns have gone through that. The Suns have, in the heyday of the Barkley years, when you couldn't think about getting a ticket, then they had some down years when they went night after night and couldn't fill up their building. Now, it's back to full throttle. Anyway, so after '98, and then the drop off in ticket sales that we saw, Jerry said, "Well, okay, time for a little bit of a pivot here." And the pivot is we're going to still continue developing our farm system, trying to draft smart, build a foundation with our young players who come up through our system, but we got to be more competitive out there at the big league level.
yeah.
And so to do that, we started bringing in the veteran players, free agents, trades, sign Randy, sign Steve Finley, trade for Gonzo, trade for Tony Womack, to put the competitive product out there at sort of the same time. So '99, we go from 65 wins to 100.
Wow.
And I think it may still, I don't know. At the time, it was the biggest turnaround year over year in baseball. Go to the division series against the Mets, and we lose that series when Todd Pratt hit a home run to center field on a ball that Steve Finley, who was, I think, still, I've always thought, and watching him play every day only reinforced it, one of the really underrated center fielders of this era. He was so good. And the only reason he didn't turn up on SportsCenter every night was because balls that other guys were laying out for, Finley had such an ability to read the ball off the bat, he'd be standing there tapping his glove waiting for the ball to come down, right?
Yeah.
On this with Pratt, he gets back to, he told me after, he says, that's the worst play at the wall I've ever made in my life. He got back to the wall, and when he went to jump, he kind of jumped into the wall, and the ball still went off the top of his glove. So we lose that one. Now, so here's another, you get me going on these things. What can I say? So now it's, I don't know how many, I had, it was, wait a minute, I'll tell you, it was, it was 15, I guess, when the Mets are in the World Series.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm at the commissioner's office. I'm standards and stadium operations. And one of the things, and you know this, what you do, people don't, this, you got to be kidding me, it's true. For the postseason, we go out to all the fields and measure the mounds. You actually, you get out there with the groundskeeper and you measure the slope because it's in the rules. You measure out 18 inches in front of the rubber, and then it's 1 inch per foot, and you measure all of that. You measure the mounds in the visitor's bullpen, and sometimes, things are a little off. I think never, not on purpose, but anyway, that's part of what you do. So I'm walking across the vast area there before you at Citi Field, and a lot of places they have the bricks that you can buy, and you put your grandpa's name on or something, and so you can find them. They surround a big piece that commemorates some moment in the team's history. So it's 10 o'clock, and you can see where this is going. So 10 o'clock in the morning, I'm walking across there, and there's one other guy going to, I don't know, buy a ticket or something. He's maybe 15, 20 feet away from me, and I happen to look down, and I see this big marker that says, October 2nd, 1999, Todd Pratt's home run sends the Mets into the League Championship Series. And I go,
oh, God.
Todd Pratt. The guy looks at me like, what's the deal? I said, it's a long story. You don't want to know. Trust me. It's having a bad flashback here. So.
I have that every time I see Kirk Gibson's home run. I still have a bad flashback.
There you go. Same concept. Same concept.
That's funny. So what Why'd you pick Buck Showalter? What I knew you were with you. Did you work with Buck with the Yankees and you had a history with him?
I had not. Our times there did not overlap. Jerry had gotten a lot of great recommendations about Buck, how organized he was, how detail oriented he was, and it seemed a potential fit. Uh, the issue was he going to be okay with not being in the dugout for nearly 2 years from over 96, 97. But he immersed himself first in the amateur draft and then the expansion draft. So I think that time passed pretty quickly, and then he put his staff together. And before you knew it, it was 98. Here we go.
Did it seem like a long time from the time you got the franchise to when you started to play, or did you just look up and say, "Wow, this is coming really fast"?
Oh yeah, this was coming really fast because
Yeah.
there were just so many things to do. I mean, there was never really a doubt that the stadium would be ready, but it wasn't going to be ready very much ahead of time. Um, and in 97, really, I mean, we were also literally going around trying to identify places where we would have a minor league team, or we wouldn't have the full system built out, I think, until 99. But we were going around looking at cities, looking at stadiums. Was this going to be a good fit? We had a trip over to Japan mixed in there. So yeah, November of 97 rolled around in a big hurry. I can tell you that.
So when you, I know the challenges we had in Toronto. What were the biggest challenges you had bringing free agents to Arizona, or did you have any? I mean, Arizona's beautiful, but there's got to be something. Someone always raises like, "What about this?" So, what were your biggest
Well, I
challenges
think
bringing
I think
players?
the big challenge, and that's why signing Randy was so important. The big challenge was, look, players want to win, and even then as now, um, in a sense, the money's not a factor because players are going to get paid, right? So it's really a case of, okay, if I'm going to commit to spending the next 3, 4, 5 years of my career, might be my prime years in a place, I want to know that this is going to be a competitive team. I'm not here just to show up, the good ones, the good ones. I'm not here just to show up and collect my paycheck every 2 weeks and then go play golf in the off season. I want to be chasing championships. So again, this was where Jerry was just invaluable, invaluable. And it's nice to say it started with Randy, um, convincing players. Look, as the saying goes, we're in it to win it.
Right.
And the fact that we're an expansion team, um, we don't buy into this notion that, well, we have to be terrible for 8, 10 years and then we'll slowly start to get good. He's nope. Now, right now, we're going for it. He told me once a great story. This was in '99, when we had gotten off to a good start, and I don't know, when it was June or something, I went to him and said, I know it's only year 2, but I got to tell you, I mean, we had Matt Williams, we had Jay Bell.
Yeah, good players.
I mean, we had guys, and we're doing okay. And I said, I think we really need a piece in the bullpen. And the guy I had my eye on was Matt Manti, who was pitching for the Marlins, who, I mean, of course, now these days, I mean, guys throw BP at 97. So,
Yeah.
But back then, Manti, who would throw 98, touch 100 once in a while, I mean, this was pretty special.
Unheard of.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So I said, I think we might be able to get him, but we'll probably have to trade some prospects, some of our younger guys. But I think we could do this. What do you think? And he said, well, 1976. He said, it's the 7th, 8th year of the Suns. I'm standing on the floor of the Boston Garden. We're in the finals. I'm looking around saying, yeah, all right. We did this. It didn't take that long. And now that we got here, we'll be back. He said, you know when we went back? 17 years later is when we went back. He said, the moral of that story is when you got a chance to win, you go for it. You don't hold back because you don't know when that opportunity is going to come around again. So that was the message that he delivered to the free agents that, look, we don't view our status as an expansion team. You know, we should know better. We should know our place, any of that stuff. He says, to heck with that. He says, we're in this league and we're competing and we're going to go out and get the players. And you need to be a part of that. I mean, that was his pitch. You need to be a part of this. In fact,
how refreshing is that? You know, to have the heads of the organization, you know, basically the ownership group, and being able to give you the autonomy to. It doesn't exist today. I mean, it's like you said earlier. Some teams are just, well, I think we're going to win in 2 years, or maybe we'll win in 3 years. But you get a guy like Colangelo who says, no, we want to win. What
right.
Man, what a shot across the bow for the organization.
Yeah, I mean, and Steve Finley was a great example. Steve came over, talked to him, spent an afternoon with him, and then he went home, and his agent said, I think Steve's going to pass. I said, all right, it's disappointing. And then we signed, I forget who else, we signed a couple other guys. Next thing you know, his agent is calling me back saying, hey, I talked to Steve, and he's looking at what you're doing, and he told me, he said, hey, those guys in Arizona, they're not kidding.
Right.
I got to be a part of this. So we make the deal with Tim's.
Yeah. So it makes such a difference when your main objective is to win, and which I never understand. That's what we're supposed to do anyway. But anyway, you guys have five winning seasons in a row, and you're building this thing, I know you had to make a change with Buck at some point, but you still got a really good club building and building. What do you think was the pieces that put you over the top to eventually get you to that world championship?
I think it was a lot of things. I look back on that team, the 01 team, now after 26 years, and I see such a great compilation of players, guys that had individual success. Certainly Randy, Matt Williams, Jay Bell, I mentioned, Mark Grace, all these guys, but they had never collectively won a championship. And so it was clearly a team of very different personalities. I mean, you had Kurt Schilling, who, say what you want about Schilling, and there are many things to say, but he was a competitor. He wanted that ball. My God, if he didn't want that ball every 5 days. Who may never have had an unspoken thought at that point in his life. And Matty, who would just kind of give you that 1,000-yard stare, and you could feel his eyes sort of boring through your back of your skull. But smart players. I mean, Greg Colburn, Counsell, maybe the smartest ball player ever been around. And bench guys. That was back in those days, the National League. I mean, your bench was a thing. I mean,
very important.
We had guys coming off the bench, Colburn, Dave DeLucci, Durazo, who could have been everyday players someplace else, but bought into it. Said, no, I know my role here. And I think that year we set the record for most pinch hit home runs. So it was a veteran team, very much and again, you know all these things. What are the best clubhouses? The best clubhouses are these self-policing clubhouses. Yeah. Coaches can sort of do it, manager maybe, but not really. Yeah. It's that peer-to-peer. Come on. And not that we needed a lot of that in that clubhouse, but when it needed to happen, there were plenty of guys who were ready to do it. So it was just a very talented team. One of the best compliments we got, and I heard it more than once from other managers, general managers, was it's a pleasure to watch your team because they just, to use the cliche, they just play the game the right way.
Right.
They do all the little things. They don't overthrow the cutoff man. The trail runner moves up. They take the extra base when they can. When a guy's got a bunt, he gets the bunt down. It was just a great baseball team.
No better compliment than that. When your opponents see how well your team plays.
Absolutely right.
No better compliment as a general manager to know that you put that team together. And as you know, Joe, there's only so much we can do as a general manager. You put the team together, and then you let them play. And then
I used to say all the time, at 7:00, my ability to influence the outcome of that game is exactly the same as the guy sitting up in the 300 level. I might have a better seat. That's the only difference. They're going to go out there and do what they do.
Between 3:00 and 7:00, if they saw all the headaches you had to deal with.
Oh, that's different. Yeah, nobody wants your job then. But 7:00, hey, I'm right there with you, pal.
Yeah.
Who brought this guy in?
So, magical year, you win the World Series. Talk us through that.
Well, gosh, what a year. We had a good season. I mean, it was competitive. We didn't exactly run away from the rest of the division, but we get in the playoffs, and our first round opponent is the Cardinals. And the Cardinals were pretty. I mean, it was McGuire and all those guys. Great series. Comes down to Game 5. It was 3 out of 5 in those days. So we get the tying run the winning run on third in the 9th inning. No, tying run, excuse me. And Bob Brenly, God love him, puts on a suicide squeeze with Tony Womack off, left-handed batter. And the pitch is high and outside, and whoever I forget was on third base, he's out by about 40 feet, right? Oh. And we're all going, oh, geez, no. The game was tight. I take that back. So, anyway, fortunately, and again, this is sort of to my earlier point. We had runners on first and third. The runner on first was Greg Colbert. Well, Colby, right there with Counsell, if he had wanted to, would have been a great manager. So smart. As soon as the play starts to develop, he takes off for second. And, of course, the play is at home. There's no throw to second. So now he's on second. Okay. So now we pinch run for him. And Womack, when all this confusion settles down, he sticks a ball in the right field corner. We win. That's it. Series over. And I remember at the time thinking, boy, if this thing goes to the 10th inning, we're in some trouble because all the Cardinals' big boys are coming up. And,
right.
How's that go? But just a smart baseball play. A lot of guys on first base would have turned into a spectator at that point, going, holy smokes, what's happening? Colby knew as soon as the play started, his job was to get to second base, which he does. Okay, so now we're going to play the Braves in the LCS. And it was so funny. It was weird because the Braves had their great pitching, right? I mean, they all lined up. And for some reason, we always had done well against the Braves, particularly Maddox. I asked him that one time when he was the pitching coach on Team USA in the WBC. We didn't win it, but we had a lot of fun. Joe Torre was the manager. Maddox was the pitching coach. Bo was his bench coach. Oh, my God, was that fun. It was the best. So good. Dale Murphy was one of the coaches. I could have done that forever. Anyhow, I said to Maddox one time, what was the deal? I said, we had to be the only team. We'd look at the schedule and get happy if we saw we were going to get you. And he said, I have no idea. You guys wore me out. You just did.
It's crazy.
It was crazy. We had no business. Like I won 350 games for crying out loud. So anyway, we go in there, and honestly, we were like, yeah, we're going to win this series. It's not going to be a problem. And so we did. And so now it's on to the World Series. Okay. So anyway, and of course, this is all now being played out against the backdrop of 9/11. So now there is that. So the series starts, and of course everybody remembers Gonzo's game-winning hit in the seventh game, as we should. But Craig Counsell, in the bottom of the first game, got as big a hit as you could get. And by that I mean, so we're all there, it's great. And now I think a point comes. I know I felt this way. I suspect a lot of people did. You look down there, and it's my dog in the background here.
That's all right.
Hang on. You're like, oh, look at that. That really is the Yankees. There's Jeter, and there's Joe Torre, and there's Rivera, and now the game starts, and the Yankees get a run top of the first. And you could just feel this kind of weird vibe go through the building, like, I wonder if the clock has finally struck 12 here for these Cinderellas, and we're all going to turn into pumpkins. So, okay, now we go to the bottom of the first. Here comes Counsell. Hits one over the right field fence. Ties the game up. And it was like, all right, okay. You know what? This is just a ball game. We're playing, they're playing. Let's go. Let's play. So we go on, win that game, win the next game. Now we're going to fly to New York. We're up 2-0 now, flying to New York, and then play those three incredible.
Jeez.
Is the only word for it.
Yeah.
Incredible games in New York. Jeter, Mr. November, Young Kim. You couldn't.
Tino Martinez.
You couldn't have made these things up, right? Okay. So somehow we get back on the plane feeling like, we actually won all these games, except we didn't. Now we're down 3-2.
Right.
Okay. So now we got Randy going in Game 6, and Andy Pettitte going for them, and we're all over Andy Pettitte from the jump, just wearing him out to the point that we're up. I don't know what the score was in the sixth inning, and Randy's just cruising, and Brenly comes out and says, "Listen, I think we can get this one home. I got to get you out of here to save some bullets for tomorrow, because tomorrow might be all hands on deck, and I might need you tomorrow." And he says, "Okay." So sure enough, and in one of these moments, that why baseball is so great, it just is. It's why it's the best. So we win 15-4, 15-6, whatever it is, and set a record for most hits in a World Series game, breaking the record that had been held by, among other teams, the 46 Cardinals.
Your father.
In the game in which they set that record, my dad got 4 hits in that game.
Yeah.
So after the game, I said to him, suppose in that clubhouse, somebody had come up to 20-year-old Joe and said, "Hey, this record you just set, it's going to stand until the year 2001. And the night that it's broken, you will be in the ballpark to see it." And he thought for a second, and he said, I'd have probably said, "Geez, I'll be 75 years old then." That fault your math, Dad. That's exactly right. So, okay.
Oh, God.
So anyway, so now we go to Game 7. Schilling's got the ball. Schilling and Clemens, just clash of the Titans, right? And they are both on it. They are on it. And it's just a game, this is a fan. You had to love it. Had to love it. So Soriano golfs one out in the 8th inning, goes down, gets a ball around his ankles, hits it over the left field fence. Now we're down 2-1. So Brenly comes out to get Schilling and he takes the ball. He says, "Let me tell you something. He was mic'd up. He says, 2 runs not going to beat us in this game." Okay. So bullpen gates open. Who's coming in? Randy Johnson. The first legitimate relief appearance he's had in like 600 games, literally. And it's like, hey, Randy, I know you haven't come out of the bullpen in 10 years, but got a little something for you here. It's eighth inning of the seventh game of the World Series, and if they score any more runs, we're going to have no chance. So you think you can hold them here for us? Bang, 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 out of the eighth, out of the ninth, boom, done. Okay. So now we go to the bottom of the ninth. Here comes Rivera. And anybody, including yours truly, who says, I had a good feeling about it, they are lying. They are lying to you. No, everybody had the same feeling. Oh, geez, here comes the greatest closer in the history of the game. Well, as the inning unfolds, there are so many plays, beginning with the ball that Rivera throws away at second base.
Right.
A play I, in subsequent years, would always bring up in spring training to the pitchers, who, as they're sort of half-stepping through their PFPs, I would remind them that the reason, one of the main reasons we won the World Series was because the greatest relief pitcher ever couldn't execute a PFP in the moment. A play he had practiced 9 million times on the backfields in Tampa. At that moment, he didn't do it. Throws to the right field side, off the bag, and the inning goes on. Now, okay, here comes Jay Bell. He bunts, and it's not a very good bunt. And as he's running down to first base, he told me afterwards, he's thinking to himself, I just screwed up the World Series with this bunt. So I think Rivera picks it up. He throws to Brocious to get the out at third. Jay Bell is 40. He's barely even reached the 3-foot line running down to first. All Brocious has to do, step on the bag, throw to first, double play, 2 outs, and all the air is out of the building. For some reason, he kind of locked up.
Yeah.
He just held the ball. Didn't throw to first. Whether they were still kind of processing the Rivera play or what. And Rivera, who, as you know, is a wonderful man, never said a bad word about his teammates. Afterwards, in a very sort of oblique way, questioned why Brocious didn't throw the ball to third base. Who knows? I don't know why. Nobody knows why. So anyhow, instead of 2 outs, there's only still 1 out. So now up comes Counsell, and I'm like, okay, this is the right guy up there now. This guy will figure out a way. And what happened? He gets hit by a pitch. And everybody's reaction is like, no. It's like if it was football, we'd have declined the penalty. Let him shoot. No, he goes down to first base. So now here comes Womack. And just like he did in St. Louis, the St. Louis series, finds a way. That ball down the corner, and now the game is tied. Okay. So now here comes Gonzo. And he told me afterwards, he said one of the things he had to make a conscious effort to do was to get himself back in the moment.
Right.
He said, what do you do the time you were a little kid and you're in the backyard playing wiffle ball or whatever? The announcer's going in your head, right? 7th game of the World Series, bottom of the 9th, winning run on third, up to the plate steps Luis Gonzalez. And he said, so as I'm walking up there, I'm thinking, this is actually happening. It actually is the bottom of the 9th of the 7th game of the World Series, and the winning run is on third, and I'm coming to bat. So, okay, Yankees bring the infield in. They got to bring the infield in. And he gets Rivera's cutter and manages not to break his bat. He fights it off. It's this little parachute. Yeah. And the, I don't know if you call it karma or whatever, but in one of the games in New York, they all kind of run together in my mind.
Yeah.
There was a play where we had runners he had bases loaded, first and third, something like that. And I'm sort of bearing down, and I think it was Reggie Sanders hits one, and I'm thinking, oh, this is through because the infield's in. I look up, and Soriano had not come in. He was playing back at normal depth, and he gets to the ball, and we don't score. And I'm sitting there saying, no, you got to be playing in for that play. What are you doing back there? You're out of position. Well,
Yeah.
turned out he wasn't.
Yeah.
So, if Jeter's playing normal depth on Gonzo's ball, I mean, he puts that in his pocket, no problem, but he wasn't.
Yeah.
No parachute there, and that was that. So that was
What a great moment. What a moment to share with your dad, too, huh?
Oh, yeah, that was the best. He afterwards would say in answer to the typical question, what's the biggest thrill you ever had in baseball? And this is a guy won a World Series at age 20 in his hometown of St. Louis and was one of the stars of that series. And he would always say, when Joe's team won the World Series. So
That's pretty special.
Hard to improve on that, JP. Hard to improve on that.
And like I said, your dad was he was just so quick-witted and so funny and so down to earth, and he made you love baseball. I mean, I was a kid growing up, listening to the Game of the Week with him. I learned so much about baseball. And my dad played in the minor leagues. I mean, we came from a baseball family. And
Sure.
Your dad really...
two things I always tell people. One is the guy you saw on TV, that was him.
Yeah.
That's who he was.
Yeah.
It wasn't like the cameras went off and all of a sudden he was this different guy. No, that was him. He loved the game. He loved being around the game. Nothing made him happier when he was a broadcast. And he broadcast for the Diamondbacks for a long time. He did home games on Sunday. He loved two things. He loved to get to the park, go downstairs, sit in the manager's office, and just, the word is kibitz, I guess, with the manager. And then he loved sitting down in the scout section.
Yeah.
Because those were his guys.
Yeah.
And he would just go back and forth with them. But he always said his goal with a broadcast, whether it was Kubek or whoever, was he wanted the viewer to feel like they were sitting a row behind two guys who seemed to know a lot about the game and were just talking back and forth. And that was his approach to it.
I used to watch the Game of the Week and listen. Now, I was young at the time, and I used to listen to those guys talk, and I'd be like, wow, I don't know anything about baseball. I'm listening to Kubek talk about positioning. Now I'm like, 10, 12 years old. I'm listening to Kubek talk about positioning. I'm listening to your dad talk about setting up a hitter. I'm like, wow, I got so much to learn about baseball playing, and
you learned plenty, JP. I'll tell you that, because you did a great job every place you went. And I will say this: you were. I'm just going to put a plug in here, particularly when I got over to the commissioner's office. There were guys not always fun to work with, because my job was I was always the guy who had to call the team and tell them their guy was suspended, and I yelled at, well, what about the other guy? Well, you were great. You understood it. Your reaction was, yeah, I know. You got to do what you got to do. So, thanks for that. Thanks for your being a professional.
It's we're all supposed to be in it together, right? We're all supposed to be trying to.
That's the idea.
Caretakers of the game, but I know Johnny here wanted to come in. He's got a question that he asked to if he could ask today, and I said, of course, go ahead. So go ahead, John, your floor, buddy.
Thanks, JP. And I do have to say before I ask the question, I used to watch the Game of the Week every week. That was it. And your dad and Kubek, and it was just, I couldn't miss each and every week. And your dad was so entertaining, a true personality, true icon of the
it's
game.
Funny, you try to explain this now you hate to say to younger people because you sound like the guy standing on his lawn yelling at the clouds. But back in the day, that was literally true. That was the game of the week. If you didn't live in a city that had a baseball Major League team, that was your one chance to watch Major League Baseball players. And even if you did, that was before interleague play. So if you lived in a National League city, you never saw the Yankees. You never saw the Red Sox. it was Saturday afternoon with Joe and Tony. So
it was a great tradition that so many traditions have gone wayside now, but those are great memories for me. But I do want to touch upon the 2001 World Series and what a great discussion you and JP had about it. I'm coming from the perspective of 9/11 and how emotional that series was, which obviously led to the D-backs winning the World Series against the Yankees, and that ended their 3-year reign as world champions of baseball, 3 consecutive World Series. So in that aftermath and how devastating that was for our country, and with your opponents in the World Series being from New York, and with a lot of the country just kind of rooting for the Yankees that normally may not root for the Yankees because of what happened in New York and the country at 9/11, take us back to that year, the tragedy, having to face the Yankees, and all the emotion that took place during the end of that season and into that World Series.
Yeah, John, it's hard to put into words. It really is. We were all obviously cognizant of everything that had happened, of New York's unique role in it. Certainly, we watched when the Yankees and the Mets first came back, and the emotional scenes at Shea Stadium, and then we find ourselves in the World Series against the Yankees. And I will tell you this: I know I felt this way. I think a lot of guys felt this way. We were rooting for the Yankees to get there because, one, the obvious, and I think we all believe it, that baseball has many, many great facets and its restorative powers, if you will, certainly one of them. But I think also there was a feeling of, look, if we can get to this final round, who do you want to play? You want to play the greatest baseball team of all time, the greatest organization. You want, you're going to get into the ring, you want to get in against the champ. And clearly, I had this personal connection. That was my first job in baseball, working for the Yankees. But I think we all felt that way. So we get to New York, and it was surreal, I guess would be a good word. Going to Yankee Stadium, seeing literally thousands of police around there. And the moment, we've all seen it a million times and heard the backstory about Jeter getting him and everything. But when President Bush walked out there on the mound and stood there, God, what a moment! The emotions, they're indescribable. You felt pride, you felt everything.
And he threw a strike.
And then he threw a strike. Yes, he did. After Jeter said, "Now, whatever you do, don't bounce it. This is New York. They'll boo you." And he had the flak jacket on under his World Series jacket. So, and there were Secret Service guys dressed as umpires in the dugout. Jeez, and there were snipers on the roof of Yankee Stadium. You could see them. It's indescribable. But then, okay, now the game starts, and now it's like, well, here we are, and we're going to compete and see who wins. But my goodness, what a what other story? True, it's true. We were staying down at the Grand Hyatt, and the way you'd go to the ballpark was all the way up Park Avenue and then across the bridge and into the stadium. Well, we're on the buses and we got the motorcycle escorts because it's so cool in New York. That's what they do. So we're buzzing up Park Avenue, Game 3, and we go past this church, and there's a young priest out in the front. And he sees all the commotion, right? And the motorcycle outriders and the buses. So he waves, we wave back. Same thing happens day 2. By day 3, somebody has tipped him off. It's the Diamondbacks going by. So I won't do it here, but let's just say on day 3, as we went past the church, the father was out there and gave us the salute. I was like, oh, come on, Father. I said to the guys, New York, guys. New York. You got to love it.
That's after you went by the guy in the corner who owned the tailor shop who used to move.
Yeah. You start with him, right. Who gave you his version of it. But,
that's a great story. Even the priest stooped to the New York level.
That was the best. I said, man, I
Oh,
miss this town.
well, Joe, we can't thank you enough. Unfortunately, we
No,
have to
guys.
end these
No,
things.
you
But
can tell I
thanks.
didn't have any fun. This was a chore.
That's
Gee,
we got to get you back on someday because there's going to be so much
anytime.
with your
Anytime.
dad.
We talk about yogi, talk about everything.
Thanks so much. Listen, all the best. You look great. Good health. Keep it up and enjoy the new
All right, you
house.
too. Talk soon. All right.
All
Bye-bye.
right, take care.
Thank you, Joe.
Okay.
Very entertaining storytelling, great career, great legacy. Joe Garagiola Jr. has had a fabulous career. It was great to bring him on.
Yeah, and he's still having a good career. He's very involved with the Diamondbacks, and like all of us, baseball's in your blood, and it seems like you never get it out of it. So Joe's continued to do great things, and very grateful for him coming on.
All right. Well, we had another great show this week, JP. 4th of July is coming up. And what are your big plans before we wrap it up today? You got anything exciting going on up there in Massachusetts?
Yeah, we usually have a big family get together, and then my wife and I are going to get on the Cape with my son's girlfriend's family. So yeah, always got a lot of things going on. But I'm doing a game on the 5th on television for Nesson up here, so I'm excited about that. How about you?
Yeah, I'm heading back to Nashville. I was invited to the big Nashville fireworks celebration that they do each and every year. It's
Nice.
just getting really big. There's going to be close to 1 million people there, from what they say. I remember it when there was, 50,000 people there. We used to broadcast it on the company that I used to work for, Great American Country. But Nashville has become such a huge part of everything. It just seems like the city's getting bigger and bigger. So that's what I'm intending to do this
Nice.
4th of July. It's going
Nice.
to be a
Nice
lot
to
of fun.
celebrate our country.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, that'll wrap it up for this week's Brushback with JP. Until next week, when we return, this is John Arezzi for JP. Have a great 4th of July weekend.